Opposition heavyweights are ramping up their strategy to present a competitive candidate as the governing party, the All Progressives Congress, last week endorsed President Bola Tinubu's candidacy for a second term in office come 2027. Major names said to be involved in these talks are the 2023 presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Waziri Adamawa Atiku Abubakar, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 election, Peter Obi, and former Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai, who is a former friend turned now a foe, an enemy, well, that's a strong word, to President Bola Tinubu. However, with Atiku's People's Democratic Party and Obi's Labour Party mired in internal political crisis, the prospects of unity in the opposition have remained uncertain. In the PDP, Wike is disrupting the party with the choice of a national secretary, which is between Anyanwu and Ude Okoye. A concern raised by Governor Umoeno of Akwa Ibom, saying that any candidate whose form is signed by an unrecognized secretary will be sacked in court. The situation in the Labour Party is not different, with Abure, Nenadi, and Apapa factions. Joining us on this show to discuss the various crises within the opposition parties and how this diminishes their chances against the ruling APC in the 2027 elections is Dr. Sam Amadi, Arise News Analyst. Good morning, Dr. Amadi, and thank you for joining us on the morning show. Well, Dr. Amadi, a lot
Thank you, Dr. Ruben.
Yeah, thank you. Good to see you. A lot of toing and froing, jostling and hustling in the opposition parties. Either it's the coalition, or it's the Labour Party, or it's the People's Democratic Party, where Wike says he will fight to the finish, or it's even any of the other parties, ADC, Social Democratic Party. So much confusion around the place. And yet, each of these political parties, collectively, individually, or in form of a coalition, will seem to be saying that they will displace the APC. They will displace President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. What do you think of their chances? Particularly now that President Tinubu says, well, these guys have no life jackets. Their boats are sinking, and they are welcome to dissolve into the APC. And there's this talk about the possibility of one party dominating. What do you think?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. First, let me say this. If you assess by the internal coherence, and seeming, focus of the opposition, then one could say that President is correct, that essentially, of all the parties, the APC is the most stable, of course, the party in power with the capacity to dispense reward and create win-win for many people. One of the problems of the APC, of the opposition, is that Nigerians' pecuniary focused, oriented politics, the politics of self-interest, requires large apple and the possibility of multiplication of the proceeds of politics. And so when you are a president or when you are the party in power, you have room to manage conflict. So if you want to remove your chairman of your party, you could sell him ambassador to US or high commissioner to London, or you could sell him or her chairman of MPA. So that capacity to really create win-win in multiple ways enable the ruling party oftentimes to ride over storms. The opposition parties themselves don't have that, both fiscal and opportunistic ambit or bandwidth to shape things. So first, they are stuck. Either they are principled, determined, and understand the position of power as a matter of either ideology or existential crisis or even long-term political interest and not short-term. What happened in 2015, there's a shift here. In 2015, most of those outside power were united by a desire to get PDP out at all costs and scope a long-term reward system for themselves. So President Tinubu, for example, who was one of the leaders, if not the main leader, withdrew back, allowed 8 years to come back. But what is afflicting the opposition party is short-termism, number one. Two, they are more diverse in their political calculations and especially than we had with the opposition in 2015. And since 2015, ethnic configuration has changed. The ethnic politics, thanks to President Buhari, and the ethnic urgency of different group sections wanting to come to power is now much more pressing and urgent and divisive. So you now have, in the mix, an anxiety on, zoning, rotation, who gets power quick. And so that also has kind of made negotiation, a lot more difficult for them. But nevertheless, I think that what gives hope for the opposition is that the government is struggling in many ways. It's part of what it thinks about its policies. If you use the historic assessment that was given to us by Dudley Sear many years ago, 1962, which is what's happened to poverty, inequality, unemployment. Those basic indicators show that the government is not able to, kind of seal the deal with the Nigerian people. That's huge frustration. And the opposition, imagines that they can weaponize that frustration to take Tinubu out of government. But on the basis of their own organizing and their coherence, if you are an analyst, you will not give the score to them. But if you're looking at the fact that the government, APC government, seems to be scoring own goals in many ways, then we are set for perhaps a competitive election in 2027. So I agree that the opposition party is not doing well, and the prospect of a coalition, which everybody wants, or at least all those in the opposition, looks a little bit, not able to happen, or somewhat difficult to get through because of the polarizing nature of the actors themselves. Okay, it looks like everybody must be president in these 4 years.
All right, Dr. Amadi, I'm really glad that you made reference to 2015 because some people might argue that the definitive thing in 2015 was the fact that the incumbent was ready to concede, which is something that, we may not see anytime soon. My question is, what should the coalition be focusing on? Should it be galvanizing the population of the North? Should it be electoral reform? Should it be... Where do you think the real defining factor lies for having a real chance at defeating an incumbent, for coming against federal might in 2027?
This is a beautiful question. I mean, look, my argument has been that the opposition is focusing a lot on elite politics and less on two areas I think they should focus on. One is electoral reform. Look, electoral reform is like a Nigerian, we are now jaded. People, but look at the point. If you look at 2023, at least two of the leading political opposition parties claimed to have won the election. The Labour Party claimed that they won, that the beavers failed them, that they were rigged out. PDP claimed the same thing. But since 2023, they have done nothing to push for real reform. Now look at three areas they've done nothing. INEC was opaque. INEC's operational process is very, very opaque, not transparent, not participatory. For example, if you look at what happens elsewhere, even county level in the US, the county election board does an open hearing and votes. Every time, whatever decision they make about elections, are decisions made what we call in administrative law, decisions on record, voted intervenors. The parties send their lawyers to make an intervention. Those interventions, just like a court, quasi-judicial, they make a hearing and make a determination. So, but here, in 2019, I've been arguing that the first crisis of the election in Nigeria is that the administrative procedure for decision-making is not controlled in a manner that INEC is restrained. For example, the issues around beavers, how do you deploy those things? Issues around electoral transmission. Those are not issues we leave for INEC post-election. They begin to quarrel. You have to be sure that INEC decisions are made openly with consultation. So parties are not engaging them. They're not doing anything. That's basically not, they're not doing elections. Now look at the issue around the judiciary. we see that part of the crisis is that the courts themselves have either misconceived sometimes the electoral jurisprudence or have actually aided errant INEC officials to actually rig election by not inquiring or by using technical burden of proof and front-loading and allowing the victims of possible electoral manipulation to carry the burden of even inventing evidence where INEC itself refuses to turn in the subpoenaed evidence itself, as we saw in the case of Kogi and several areas. Of course, there have been minority Supreme Court decisions that says this is not good, this is not fair. How are the courts trying to push a legal opinion that tries to change and open the electoral jurisprudence in a way that the purpose of electoral jurisprudence, which is to allow the votes of the people to count, what have they done towards that area? So they have not done enough to first create a possibility that if an upset happens at the poll, that upset will be declared by INEC and the court will validate it. The second area they have not been doing well is that they have been doing a lot of conspiratorial politics. So the big guys meet at rooms and talk, but they're not really engaging the voters they want to turn against Tinubu. They simply feel that the government has failed. But that's not true. In the last couple of weeks, this APC government has turned in much more remarkable political communication. They are doing better, in my view, in managing political communication. They are coming from a difficulty. I mean, the problem is that an incumbent runs on their record. And as long as things are bad, it doesn't matter the presumptions or the policy intentions. The outcome ruins the party for you. And so every incumbent in an election is in difficulty to try to win because every bad thing is your cause. So Tinubu is in a difficulty because the impact of policy, at least in this time frame, is negative. But they are doing better work communicating their position. They are doing better work framing. So they did, apart from Mr. P2B, actually, who has, not by way of strategic communication, but by way of engagement, meeting people, the opposition is not really, is taken for granted that there is a vote constituency, they will just go and cash in. All we need to do is to put Obi, Atiku, Amechi, Erufai in a room and they agree and first ADC or SDP, bingo, we are home. That is fallacy. They are not engaging in mobilizing the people and proposing what people can ask. Okay, you said Tinubu did floating the naira. How about you? You said the same thing. What would be different? When people ask that question, they struggle because they're not thinking around how do we frame an alternative and how do we even communicate it. So the notion that they're not angry will not cut the deal.
Okay, I mean, you're spot on. And in fact, you're giving these guys free strategy, especially the opposition guys. And that has always been my grouse. In fact, it looks as though they don't even have a grasp of the issues. Today, they have not even iterated a roadmap, frequently asked questions and solution patterns to various challenges in the economy. We don't see that. We don't see a lot of rigor and thinking. It's just reactionary. It's just, Tinubu did this today, he didn't do it well. What's your thinking process? Have we been proactive? Number one, what can we do about these electoral reforms? Because leading up to the last elections, we had Mr. Mike Egini come here, and he encouraged a lot of people, to go out there. We saw the lapses. Some of those things that we even need to turn to proper law in the Electoral Act. Can we pinpoint this area? I know there's a guy on socials now, Randy Peter, doing an advocacy of some sort. But how about a collective effort and forcing the National Assembly that is so concerned about other things to come on board as regards electoral reforms because they are needed now. Because 2027 without electoral reforms will be like, 2019 elections on steroids. That's where we're going again. Secondly, all the gains we had in 2023 elections has been lost as we speak today. Contentions around the Edo elections and a couple of other elections, even the use of beavers and all of that. How can we remedy all of that? And thirdly, the coalition. I see a lot of egos. How do they manage this ego play they're having, and how do they look out for the possibilities of moles in their middle? Because there are definitely going to be a lot of moles as we wrap up.
Well, I think you've just, those 3 points are very critical. In fact, Edo illustrate that we are in a worse spot than we were in 2023. Look at what happened in Edo Tribunal. I mean, how can anybody, INEC had declared election on a fake result sheet, accreditations were not done, verification of the numbers supposed to be put on prescribed form. And the court says, you know what, you brought the beavers here, it didn't operate it, we can't dump in us. I mean, those kind of things. That's what they should be doing. They're not really working hard on that. And the issue around alliance and ego, I think the problem is that in 2015, the contrast again, there was a sense in which you had politicians who probably understood who should go first. It was clear that Buhari had the votes of at least a constituency, always had more than 9 million in each election that he failed. So being bankable votes. And the leaders were perhaps clearer in their mind that this is where to go. Here, I think there's a problem of people perhaps exaggerating their importance, their right to govern. And so the ego crisis, the ego crisis is going to be a problem. More, again, here, and this is clear, Jonathan was not that intense and didn't play the politics of, the type that Tinubu is a master of, the dark politics. The PDP took it, we are going to get everything done last minute. Again, he had a more independent INEC, where, in fact, their body language was even against the ruling government. So it was a difficult proposition. And the APC was able to, but here you have a government that understands the dark arts of politics. And in fact, perhaps proficient and not restrained in using them. They've learned from their success and they've learned from the PDP failure. So it's likely they're going to have more, intrusion into their camp, betrayals. They're going to, plant in people. But what I see is that the level of seriousness that the APC had as opposition and their capacity to extend to civil society, engage all societies, dribble, manipulate, even engage the media, we're not doing it now. Because there's no person who is leading this as first, let's get this government out. Every person is leading it as, let me have opportunity. Either it is for now or 2031, whatever it is. So the difference is that you are not, this is not from an organizational strategic perspective. The coalition is weak on strategy, weak on organization, much more diverse in terms of their expectation and interest. And then you've not had an ideation. What does it represent? And then leadership has to, there be somebody who is driving this, and that somebody should be magnanimous enough and trustworthy that everybody says, okay, fine, this is the guy. Maybe somebody who is not even going to be a candidate. So they need to tighten in terms of, creating a structural integrity and coherence. And then seeing that they're dealing with an enemy, quote unquote, who is more subversive and dangerous than PDP was in 2022. Dangerous in the terms that they know how to disrupt things and they are willing to disrupt. And then again, the stakes are higher now. In 2019, the body language of President Jonathan is, my ambition is not worthy anybody's death. And you can see a sense of, he was prepared to drop the ball.
Dr. Amadi.
But here, not just Tinubu, most of the guys are not willing because a lot is at stake than in 2015.